When I was about 7 years old, I got a bootleg NES top loader from the swap meet. The games that caught my eye were what would catch the eye of any 7-year-old. Batman and Spider-Man. But I recognized the game from my youth. Not one that I had ever played, but one that I had heard of and had played its sequels. Super Mario Bros. Has made a lasting impression on me, playing as the Plumber Brother duo, specifically as Luigi, who I like more because green is cooler than red, as 7-year-old me would say. Over a decade later, I can see now, in scope, the magnitude of the franchise. Mario 1 was released for the Famicom in 1985 and received a Nintendo Entertainment System release later on in the year, receiving a complete worldwide release in 1987. That same year, a Japan-only Famicom Disk System port of the game was made specifically as a tie-in to the Japanese radio program All Night Nippon, and the game was so creatively titled All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. Original. With the release of the Super Famicom in 1990 and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1991 and 92, Mario transitioned to 16-bit. Nintendo saw fit in 1993 to remake the NES Mario trilogy, along with the Japan-exclusive Famicom Disk System version of Super Mario Bros. 2. The compilation titled Super Mario All-Stars is one of the remakes we will be comparing today. A year prior to the release of the Super Famicom, Nintendo released its first portable cartridge-based system, the Game Boy. The successor to the Game Boy was released in 1998, the Game Boy Color. While some consider the GBC to basically be a beefed-up Game Boy, I personally consider the GBC to be its own console and will treat it as such. The GBC has its own games, and one of them is the 1999 remake of Super Mario Bros., now with the Deluxe in the title. Today, we take on the challenge of comparing all three games to determine which is the definitive version of Super Mario Bros. 1. Super Mario Bros. Takes place in the Mushroom Kingdom. In the game, the evil Koopa clan, a tribe of dark, evil, magic-wielding turtles storm the kingdom and transform all of its inhabitants into bricks, which is actually, really fucked up when you think about it. The princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, Toadstool, is the only one who can reverse a spell, and is captured by the Koopa clan's leader, King Koopa. Two portly plumbers from Brooklyn somehow stumble their way into the kingdom and decide to help out. These are our stars, the titular Mario and his brother Luigi. As stated previously, the game was originally made for the NES. At the time, the Famicom had only been around in Japan for about 2 years, so the graphics and power of the system had not yet been optimized to that of later NES titles. As a person with a deep appreciation of retro games, Mario 1 looks perfectly fine on the NES. To some, I can understand the contrarian opinion, and I will lend my own less satisfied opinions to the game in a bit. Also, just pointing out that some of the negative opinions expressed in these videos are not all entirely my feelings, or some things that I've seen and stuff. So I thought I'd share that before y'all decide to fucking crucify me. To me, Mario 1 has a distinctly barren look to it. As a seasoned Mario player myself, I've grown to know what Mario worlds and stages are. Like I can tell that World 3 is supposed to be a snow world, later confirmed in All-Stars, but aside from this, it's my only major complaint with the game. I've always envisioned World 2 as a desert and World 4 as a jungle for some reason, but this leads into my main complaint with the All-Stars remakes. Speaking of All-Stars, the game's got an all-new, brand-new, sexy redesign, and it serves wonders for Mario 1 and the Lost Levels, and makes Mario 2 look nice, but admittedly the redesign is almost redundant to Mario 3. The graphics are now in beautiful 16-bit goodness. Interestingly enough, though, when I hear of a Mario remake for the SNES, I would think it would use some assets from Super Mario World, but no, Mario All-Stars remade every game from scratch. It improves on the graphics in almost every way. The previously brick floors in Super Mario 1 are now detailed grasslands. In the NES version, the clouds and the bushes share the same sprite, just a simple palette swap. In the SNES version, the backgrounds have a higher detail and now include parallax. My personal favorite inclusion is the waterfalls to the athletic levels. World 3, 5, and 7 now have snow on the ground to show the snowiness of the levels. This brings up my one beef with the All-Stars redesign. World like 2, which I envision as a desert, World 4, which I envision as a jungle, have no changes. World 4 introduces some trees to the background, but World 4 largely looks the same as World 1, and I feel there were some missed opportunities there.
Quick editing note, I for some reason didn't even notice that there was fucking trees in the background of World 2, so they're there. You can dismiss that part, sort of, kind of, I guess. Alright, bye.
Anyways, underwater levels now have a water distortion effect. In Mario 1, level 6-3 has an odd gray monochrome palette to literally everything. In All-Stars, this has been corrected. Also, the Coin Heaven and Underground secrets now include Mario and Luigi giving peace signs. I mentioned the palette swaps earlier, and now Luigi is no longer a simple palette swap with Mario, but is now a skinnier sprite with a different Fire Flower outfit. In Mario 1, due to palette limit, the Koopas and Goombas appear as teal on Underground levels, but that has been corrected in All-Stars. Previously gray Cheep Cheese are also now green, and the bloopers are now pink instead of white for no reason? I thought this change was needless, but it's only a weird observation, not a nitpick. There are a few more changes, but I feel I drove the point right home. Mario All-Stars looks great and by all means is a true graphical replacement of the original game. Now take every single thing I said about the All-Stars remake and throw it right the fuck out the window. See, the SNES is a 16-bit console, the Game Boy Color is an 8-bit console. And while the Game Boy itself could pull off some magnificent looking games such as Super Mario Land 2, which probably could have served as a graphical template, but they decided to simply convert the NES original onto the Game Boy Color. The issue with that is that the Game Boy Color uses a 144p screen, an unfortunate limitation to maintain 100% compatibility with Game Boy games. And with the earliest Game Boy Color games being able to be played on original Game Boy hardware, this is a sacrifice that had to be made. This leads into one of the most unfortunate aspects of Deluxe: the game screen is just too small. Playing this game on a big screen TV via emulation, or on a Game Boy player, or with the full screen mode on the 3DS makes for a decent experience, but if you prefer playing on the original hardware, or pixel perfect accuracy, this leads to some trouble. Otherwise, I think Deluxe looks fine. If you enjoy the NES graphics, then it's mostly the same here. Some changes include Luigi now having a sprite that resembles Mario's garb more closely. As you've seen in the original, Luigi sported white overalls and a green shirt. In All-Stars, he sported green overalls and a navy shirt. In Deluxe, the green overalls return but now feature a brown shirt. Mario shares the same palette in both the NES original and Deluxe, and drabs in red overalls with a blue shirt in the All-Stars version. The water and lava are both now animated compared to the static MPEG in the original fucking game. Princess Toadstool and the Toads now both have a talking animation. After Toadstool's rescue, she now gives Mario Luigi a smooch. Aw, how sweet. The gray Cheep Cheep are also now green in the Deluxe version thanks to better hardware, and the bloopers have been restored to white in color.
Editors know I'm an idiot, the Cheep Cheep are still green.
Aside from these changes, the game isn't much different from the NES original. The graphics would receive a decent grade, but the screen size diminishes the grade completely. I get that Nintendo didn't want their consumers squinting at their Game Boy Colors, but I feel this fix is an imperfect solution to a problem that is unfortunate to have in the first place. Everyone knows the opening main theme to Mario 1. It's so iconic, and Koji Kondo made an amazing soundtrack. I feel the NES original soundtrack can't be topped, and unfortunately this diminishes the remade soundtrack of All-Stars. It by no means sounds bad, but to me the soundtrack lacks that certain oomph. All-Stars does have some improvements to the sound design, however. The underground levels now have an echo, and while this isn't super important, I feel it makes a nice addition. Most usefully, both levels 4-4 and 7-4 feature pattern mazes. In Mario 1, you had to just blindly guess if you got the pattern correct, while Mario All-Stars now implements a little to signify that you got the path correct. This was also added to Deluxe. Deluxe, rather than remake the soundtrack with new hardware, decided simply to import the NES soundtrack into the Game Boy Color sound chip. This automatically makes the soundtrack great, but it's not a one-to-one translation. I think this is pretty cool, and thankfully it doesn't take away anything from the Game Boy Color remake. Deluxe also adds some new sound effects. Lakitu throwing spike eggs now has a sound effect, and so do jumping boards. The Game Boy Color wins out in terms of sound simply because it just keeps the same feel of the original. The SNES tried to modernize and make Mario 16-bit, but if it had just kept a more simple instrumentation, I feel it would have been better. Mario 1 only has 3 available power-ups. This does not change in any of the remakes, but I feel interesting to mention something. I'll get back to it in a second. Mario and Luigi can use super mushrooms, which makes them bigger and stronger than their base small form. The other main power-up is the Fire Flower, which allows Mario and Luigi to shoot fireballs. Shooting fire! What I was going to mention earlier, in Super Mario World, when small Mario and Luigi touch a Fire Flower, they immediately transform into their fire forms. However, All-Stars doesn't implement this, and neither does Deluxe. I feel this was a huge missed opportunity. I would give Mario 1 an A grade in terms of power-ups, but I feel Super Mario All-Stars and Deluxe could have been more liberally creative with the power-ups. I don't know if I'm a first in this, but I guess it could possibly be a hot take opinion. I've always felt that Mario 1 doesn't necessarily control awkwardly, but it does have some weird tinges to it. Now, don't mistake this as bad. I think it controls perfectly fine, but I've always had some weird issue with specifically the inertia. All-Stars does this weird thing where it recommends the Super Mario World style control with Y and B, but I'm grateful that it includes an NES style control of A and B. Some people don't give a crap, but me being a purist, I think having A and B serve as the buttons seems a little closer to home. All-Stars also, to me at least, feels bizarre. The jump feels almost kind of laggy. In the original Super Mario Bros., when you hit a brick, you hit the brick and go back down, like, how things work. But in Super Mario All-Stars, the gravity and the inertia is a bit different, because instead, when you hit a brick, you go up through it. You don't just go down like you would if you were to hit an object because of gravity. But I don't know, maybe fucking Super Mario Mushroom Man lives in a world where gravity doesn't matter, and then shit fucking happens all the time. Shooting fire! Now to break the realism a bit, I recorded the NES version on my NES Classic Edition, the SNES version through the Wii port, and the Game Boy Color version through perfectly legal means, but I've also played the games on perfectly legal means, and the SNES original on a CRT.
No, but that would be really
Super
stupid.
Nintendo. You can't see it. Hold on. Super Nintendo.
And I've always felt this way. In the 1986 Famicom Disk System version of Super Mario Bros. 2, known to us in America as The Lost Levels, Luigi controls like a disgusting demon that should never be existing ever. Luigi in Super Mario Bros. Deluxe also retains the Super Mario Lost Levels uncontrollable Luigi nightmare. In Deluxe, Luigi's inertia and jump have been fixed slightly from Lost Levels' ungodly control, but they still feel a little loose. While the All-Stars version has looser control overall for Mario, Deluxe's control of Mario is even tighter than the NES version. And to me, this is the true way to play. Mario controls so smoothly in Deluxe that it just feels right. And I played this game on a real Game Boy Color, and I can say that it does feel great. Overall, Deluxe gains the advantage thanks to its refinement to the controls for Mario, and while Luigi feels slidier, I think that's a good thing to distinguish the two. And again, it's nowhere near as bad as Lost Levels is. All-Stars just is a little too loose for my liking. One of the main appeals to Mario 1 has always been its great controls, stellar level design, and well-coordinated difficulty. Both All-Stars and Deluxe add nothing to the level of design, and All-Stars has almost the exact same level of difficulty as the NES version, excluding the, oddly laggy control. Deluxe is far harder to play than either the NES original or All-Stars. This is all due to screen constraints. Previously, the up and down of the D-pad served only to bounce higher on a spring or to crouch. Now they have double duty serving as a camera control. The previously great control of the game has taken a big hampering due to the unfortunate playfield. Mario Deluxe is by no means any more difficult in level design than Mario 1 or All-Stars. It's almost an artificial difficulty. You often hear people complain about artificial difficulty in games, but I think this is a big example of it. Super Mario Land was released literally a decade earlier, and I'm sure the graphics weren't as good, but I'm sure the Game Boy Color could have handled that. It's a poor attempt to fix a problem that never should have even been there. So every good remake has some extra content. All-Stars offers none. To Mario 1 itself, that is. The game's biggest offer is being able to play 3 other Mario games on the same cartridge. But Mario 1 itself has no new or extra content. Deluxe is the exact polar opposite, with only 2 games. Oh yeah, the Lost Levels is on this game too. Deluxe includes a Red Game Challenge mode, a Yoshi Challenge mode. The previously mentioned Lost Levels included a Super Mario Bros. For super players. You can trade high scores in the original Game Boy Color version. There's a U versus Boo mode, a versus mode by connecting 2 Game Boy Colors together, a toy box, and calendar because fuck it! The results are in. Drum roll, please. And what do these remakes do to the original? Unfortunately, I have to say there's no issue in playing the original. Mario 1 feels like a game that would be so easy to remake. It's the first Super Mario Bros. Game, for crying out loud. Regrettably, its 2 remakes didn't quite live up to the status of a replacement. The Super Mario Bros. All-Star remake gets a B+ simply for the fact that it contains 3 other games on its cartridge, but it's the definition of a C-grade remake. It adds nothing new to the original game and does nothing to improve on it. In fact, I feel the game's controls are actually even slightly worse than the originals. If the Mario All-Stars remake was released simply by itself, I guarantee it probably would be nowhere near as famous as it is. It's the status with a B+ is simply being carried by others. This doesn't mean to not play it though. Mario All-Stars is still a good remake, and I enjoy it quite a bit. With Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, the consoling use is also superior to the NES. The game itself looks no better than the NES version though. The screen plays a major factor in the actual gameplay Deluxe. The resolution itself makes it impossible to enjoy the game with the screen being ultimately too small. Despite this lackluster resolution, Deluxe makes up for it with exceptionally excellent bonus games through making gameplay much more delightful. Therefore, Deluxe manages to exceed in the ranks with a grade of a B. Whether you play the original Super Mario Bros., Super Mario All-Stars, or if you want to take Super Mario Bros. Deluxe with you on the road, you have a great time playing Super Mario Bros., as it is one of the greatest games of all time. Hi! Thanks for letting me shout my opinion at you for
16
minutes. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if not, well, then feel free to tell me why I'm a goober in the comments. I worked really hard on this video, and it's been in production since late last year. Special thanks to Edward Lopez for helping me with the script, and a big thank you to you, the viewer, for watching this. Let me know if you would like me to compare another remake versus the original. And it would be a mighty fine idea if you would put some likes, you would comment it, and you click that subscribe button. Thank you. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.